everyone. Welcome to another episode of, I was going to say Hear Me Out.
Hear me out.
I
See?
was going to say that. Relate to you. We are so excited for this last episode of the year. And today we just want to talk about this year, what this year meant for us, not just for the podcast, but in our lives, and if we have any New Year's resolutions. And so I first also want to also thank you guys for sticking around with us all this time. I know that it's not like we're the most popular people out there, or the most just interesting maybe even at times, but for those of you that stick to us and listen to us on a weekly basis, thank you for hearing us rant, critique, share,
Be
just
haters.
be everything. And this means a lot to us. I mean, we've talked about this on and off camera, but this podcast is extremely important to us. It's a chance for us to talk and share and connect with you guys, but it's also something that we've both built, that we've both created, that highlights our friendship and highlights what we care about. And so thank you for being alongside that. I don't know if you want to say anything with that as well.
Yes, I think piggybacking of what you're saying. Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you for supporting us. The few subscriptions that we have are very precious to us because it means that there's
Lady.
commitment in there. It means that you're here because you like something about us. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. And we hope to to be with you for a while longer.
So to start off, how was your year? I know that is a very heavy loaded
Wow.
question, but what were some of the highlights of your year? And you don't have to necessarily go into detail of your valleys, but unless you want to, but what was something that you could say, I'm taking this away from this year, and this is what I am, what the resolve is for 2023?
Whew. There were so many highlights. I feel like even in my personal life, there were a lot of times where I'm like, oh wow, that's a new way of learning. But I think this year, like a lot of other years, I feel like this year more so than others though, I God really worked with my patience, not just with others, but with myself. This year, I took on the role of being the administrator of the church, the sole administrator of the church, and I think there were a lot of phases where I had to be patient with myself. I had to show patience with myself, and it's easy to do so, but I feel like then you fall into this leniency kind of thing, and then you fall into like, well, I don't know, and I feel like it was very hard for me to have a balance of like, okay, I don't know, but I can learn, and I'm now responsible.
Right.
So, because I've seen it in other people where it's like, well, I don't know, well,
Figure it out.
it's well, I made this many mistakes because I don't know, I was never trained or whatever, or this isn't my expertise or whatever. And I didn't want to be that. I wanted to always be like, no, I need to learn. Okay, if I don't know something, then I'll figure it out.
Right.
And I think that was what's hard for me because it was so easy to say, well, to justify myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then it was like, but I still have to fix it.
Yeah.
Still have to yeah, to do something about it. So that was the part where I needed to be patient with myself because it was like, oh, it's not as easy as I thought, or it requires more steps, or it requires to be humbled to ask someone else, I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? So that this year was a lot of that. This year was a lot of figuring out things not completely on my own, but asking others to help me figure it out, and
being okay with that.
and being okay with that. Um, and I think this year, at the beginning of the year, I started with I there's no more unbelief in my life. I don't want unbelief. I am of unbelief. And it was hard. It was hard to remind myself, well, no que ya no iba a ser incrédula, and I failed. I failed a lot of times. I feel like a lot of my heart's desire, I saw them very, very, very far away, and I do think that I had moments in time where I stay there, where I was like, it's never gonna happen, or um, it's okay if it doesn't happen, or maybe that's not what God has for me, and it was a lot of that. And then it was a lot of like, no, 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 I can see it, and it will happen, and I know it will, and so that constant high and lows was a struggle. But I think it also meant that every time I was high, I needed to come down, and every time I was low, I needed to sort of come to a balance. And that was where I thought, okay, maybe this is, no es que sea incrédula, es que tengo que regresar.
Right.
Cuando estoy muy arriba, tampoco, y cuando estoy muy abajo, hay fe todavía. And so that balance was really difficult. So I feel like this year was a lot about patience again. But not just patience in that sense, sino patience conmigo en cuestión de mi incredulidad.
Right.
En cuestión de, I know God is going to do something. Maybe no lo que yo quiera, pero He's going to do something. So, what about for you?
For me, this year, I started off the year very negative. Believe it or not, I suffered from the most difficult battle of anxiety that I've ever experienced in my life. I had mentioned it sometimes on the podcast, but a lot of times I didn't. And sometimes it felt crippling. Sometimes it felt exhausting and draining and never ending and pointless. And it was very difficult to find the purpose in that season, and understand that God was working in something deeper
Right.
than what I was feeling. I think now my resolve is that God has been trying all year to heal something that has nothing to do with the anxiety. What He's healing is my perspective and my ability to truly trust in Him. And it's so interesting how at the beginning of this year, I had a very defeatist attitude. I had a very impatient attitude of, I want to get rid of this. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to deal with this. And I will be 100% honest. There are still days where I battle with that that emotion, that impatience of, God, I've been praying for this for so long, and I want it to be done in my way. But I do see that there has been a huge change. And I think even through it, I couldn't really say it. I couldn't really even admit it to myself that I had changed. I think now I have been a lot more intentional with prayer. I've seen the importance of prayer in my life. I've seen the power that it has in aligning me to have the right mindset. Recently, I've prayed in a way that I've never prayed before. And it hasn't been because of my situation. It has been greater than that. I realize that lately my prayer is, yes, God, you know my prayer. You know that there's at some point I want to be completely done with this. I want my answered prayer, right? But you know what? Beyond that, can you just do your will in me? Can you just finish your work in me? That change is where I've seen God work in my life this year. And I get emotional because for the longest, I couldn't find the purpose in the panic, in the anxiety. And I kept wondering, God, what are you trying to do? Like, what are you trying to fix, right? And just like you, throughout the year, there's been so many highlights. God has shown up in ways that haven't even been subtle. They have been major, where, no, mija, fue Dios. Fue Dios. This year was also significant. I stopped working at church and I went into the workforce outside of church, and that was so hard. It was hard for me to start working in a new place, to know absolutely nothing and learn something new and trust that God was going to see me through it and God was going to provide not just the strength but the patience for me to figure it out. I've seen the God's favor over my job, over my being there, over the people that I work with. I've seen God's faithfulness in my marriage, God's faithfulness in our finances, in my relationships. And so sometimes, in life, it's so easy to just fixate on what isn't going good in your life.
Yeah.
And you don't see that throughout the year, God has had these highlights of moments where He's shown you, I'm there, or I'm working, or I'm providing, or I'm not finished with you yet. But because of whatever the situation is, it's so heavy or it's so overwhelming that you can't see the blessing or you can't receive it. And right now, where I'm at, even though I'm still praying for complete healing and I'm still working through a lot of my emotions and what I'm going through, there's a lot more Thanksgiving right now than there has ever been. And that gratitude is giving purpose to my pain, or it's giving purpose to my situation, and it isn't making me feel like I'm going through this for nothing.
Yeah.
And that's where I've been this year, and I can't sit here and walk out of 2023 and say I'm still battling with this. That's not my resolve. My resolve is, despite of that, God is good. Despite of that, God has shown me how present He is in my story. Despite of the unanswered prayers at times, I'm thankful. I'm
Amen.
content. I'm feeling joy. You have no idea how much at the beginning of this year I didn't feel joy. It was difficult to feel joy in those prayers at times. And right now, even though again it goes into that, like, life doesn't have to be perfect for you to give God the glory. God, like, the life doesn't have to be perfect for you to be content, for you to be thankful, for you to be joyful. And I think that I'm finally tapping into what, we've always heard people say, how is it that this Christian, this brother, this sister, this person can be joyful in the midst of their situation? I when Dad died, I mourned, and it was clear that I mourned. But this situation, there's been a lot of moments where I've seen, whoa, I still have joy. I haven't lost my praise. I didn't stop going to church. I didn't stop praying. Yes, I had my dry spells here and there. I'm human. But I never lost my hope. So it is possible to go through life and have struggles and have valleys and still be faithful to God.
Amen. Yeah.
And that is something that is what's giving me a sense of confidence and excitement for 2024, because it's like the enemy didn't destroy me.
Yeah,
he didn't achieve what he was going to achieve, which was, let's debilitate her so much that she loses her praise.
Yeah.
And she forgets how powerful her God is. I know God is doing something in me. I know God is working in me, and I'm excited for that. But I want to use this time to encourage someone that hasn't gotten there yet. Someone who hasn't gotten to the Thanksgiving part, the joy part of their story. It's coming. And for those of you that are like, I'm struggling right now, I feel alone in my situation. I feel like no one understands me. I feel like no one, I feel like I'm the only one dealing with this. You are not alone. It might not be the same situation that Lula and I have gone through, but we both can relate to moments where you felt like this isn't going anywhere, and you feel helpless and you feel impatient,
frustrated.
And in that, what we can say is, what I would say is, run to God. Run to seeking him. Do not stop seeking God because of how you feel. Yes, doubts come. Yes, unbeliefs come. Yes, frustration comes from whatever it is that we go through. But believe you me that God is there.
Yeah.
God is listening. And at some point, things start to make sense. And it's not always what you thought it was going to be. For me, I always thought that at the end of this year, done. Answered prayer the way that I wanted. What I'm seeing is, oh God, you're making me whole.
Mm-hmm.
You're healing something way beyond that.
What I thought.
Anxiety is not even at the top of the list of what you're trying to fix.
It was your surface.
It
but
was my
wasn't
surface symptom. There's something deeper
Mm-hmm.
in me that needs healing in me. I was telling you this weekend of this story of the story of Naaman. He had leprosy, and he had gone to see the prophet. He had gone because he had heard,
Right.
I'm gonna get my miracle. Prophet doesn't even show up to go see him. He tells his servant, go tell the guy, go wash yourself in the Jordan River 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
And he was upset. He was upset because he was a great man. He had riches, and he said, the prophet's not even gonna come see me. And he even says there's greater, cleaner, more grand rivers where I'm from.
I could.
And they're telling me to go wash myself 7 times in the pool. And his men tell him, hey, had the prophet told you to do some grand thing, wouldn't you have done it to try to get your healing? Why wouldn't you do this if that's all he's asking of you? So he goes, he agrees to go wash himself in the pool. And I think about that story, and I think every time he got out of washing himself, the leprosy was still there. He had to keep trusting that the next time and the next time, and until he got to the 7th time, that answered prayer was going to happen. Right. But that process took obedience, and it took trust. And it wasn't what he had expected. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the story, it was healing something in him. Yeah. Naaman had a deeper issue, maybe pride. Maybe that was the issue. And he's over here thinking leprosy is where I need healing, but it wasn't. By the 7th time, he was healed. And so I look at that story, and I see my situation. I'm like, I don't know how many times I've washed myself from this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many times I've gone through this prayer with God. But you know what, God? I know that you're healing something deeper in me. And I'm trusting that at the end of this, I'm going to be made whole. Mm-hmm. And so that's literally what the highlight is for me this year. I'm thankful for 2023. I'm thankful for what I've gone through. And I never thought I would say this, but I'm thankful for every moment that I've gone through a very inconvenient level of panic to be able to say this today. Because I know that I am healing, and I know that I am getting stronger. And 2024 version of Kez, I don't know who she is, but I want to be friends with her. I want to know
I want to be friends with her too.
And I think that for you, Lula, a lot of people don't give her credit, but she always talks about patience, and she always talks about, I want to be patient. I lack patience. And then, I speed and I don't have patience when I drive and blah, blah, blah.
Which I have a testimony about that.
You are far more patient than you have ever been since the day that I met you.
Wow.
You are. And to us, to our standard, we're never going to be where we want to be.
True.
We're always going to say nos falta.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is you have endured so much on your own this year. So much pressure, so much workload, so much decor deciding. There's been so many moments you have had to just figure it out. And the thing about working at church is that as much as it's rewarding and it's a blessing and it's one of those things that I can honestly say was the best experience I had, nobody appreciates all the time. And a lot of things go unnoticed. and a lot of stresses and tears and blood, sweat, and tears that go behind the scenes, nobody would ever know. Because there's always something else that's coming. The fact that you've been able to do this by yourself is something that I think you should be very proud of. And I think it should be a testament to show you that you have been patient. If you weren't, you wouldn't have lasted this long. And
I'm still trying to decide if that's patience or stubbornness, because
no,
I feel like this has been the year that you saw me cry a lot more for personal reasons than other years. Other years it was about someone else, or about you, or yeah, personal reasons, but it was they were very sporadic. This year I feel like I had I feel like it was like even you knew, let me check up on her spiritually, because it's about that time. It's about that time, because I had many times where I'm like, I'm I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know how to feel about that, or I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to go about it, about this or that. And so I do think ha sido un año donde for both of us, and I think we talked about it, how like when one of us, which is probably what's good about our friendship, is that when one of us is low, the other one is somewhat okay.
Yeah.
So you can bring out the other one out. And then when the other one is low, then the other one is usually
she was a rock when Dad died. Let's just you were.
So I feel like it's been such a good balance for both of us to be at different stages in our lives, because we managed to pull each other out of those places. And I think that was for other years, but I think this year we both were sort of like up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
But we managed to, I feel like
we got through it together.
Not just through it, but I feel like knowing that you were going through a rough situation made my situation be like, okay, I can put that to the side for a little bit and focus on you. And I feel like you did the same thing on my end. Okay, I know I'm going through that, but my friend needs me. And so before it was like, okay, we were very good at, okay, I'm here and you're here, but I'm here and you're here.
Yeah.
And so era fácil. Pero ayudar a otra persona when you're having a hard time, that's something different. Mm-hmm. That's a whole level of love and compassion and I think selflessness, and I think Christ-like love, if we're being honest. The other day I was watching I feel like a lot of people have seen it, but it made me think about that. I was watching The Impossible. It's about this movie where a whole family travels to Thailand, and then a whole tsunami comes and everything.
Oh, I always cry at the end.
Yes. So when they reunite?
Yes.
Yeah. So this whole time, I'm seeing their struggle, right? And the desperation, and I kept putting myself in the mother's shoes of like, what would I do with my kid? Like she's dying, like practically she's dying as she's caring for her old child and everything, and then the father with the other two. And so, but this whole time there's a scene where he asks for a phone to someone, and he's like, no man, like I don't got a lot of battery and I'm gonna use it for my needs. And I believe on their end, there's another scene where they hear a child cry, and the older child is like, no, mom, we need to go. Like, we need to be on high. He's kind of saying, we ain't got no time to worry about others. We need to worry about it ourselves. And she's like, no, let's do something for someone. And she says something. She's like, even if it's the last thing we do, let's do it. Sort of. Can you imagine a mother telling a kid, if like we might die, but let's do something good, at least, as we leave this world.
Right.
So this whole time I'm watching the movie and I'm thinking, man, helping someone when you're also having a hard time, when you're suffering, and in their case, it wasn't just the emotional suffering, it was the physical suffering. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and not a lot of people do it. And there's no reward sometimes.
No.
Then there's I don't know why I decided to go on this movie, but there's another scene later where the father, he let his kids go to some other place, and he's gathered with other people, and he's retelling his story. And this guy gives him his phone and tells him, make a call to your parents or whomever. He makes a call, and he knows he has to do it fast because the guy doesn't have a lot of like battery or whatever. So he calls, he makes a very intriguing call of like, we're okay, but I can find so and so. And, he starts crying and then he hangs up. And that guy gets his phone back and he looks at it and he's kind of like, no, call him back. Let him know that like assure him that things are going to be better. So he calls back and everything. And so from then on, this guy says, can I help you? Can I also go with you and look for your kids and maybe look for mine? And the story just focuses on the main family and how they reunite and everything. But the whole time I'm thinking this guy went out of his way to
Help this
to
guy.
help this guy. He's also limping. I feel like he's missing a whole leg or whatever. And they never tell you if he got
His
his
family.
family. And so sometimes it's like that's hard, giving without expecting and helping someone when there's no reward at the end. And so, man, that day I learned a lot of things through that
Oh,
movie.
that movie is intense.
That movie is intense. I feel like it shows you that it takes a quality of person or quality of people to help others when you're also having a hard time. Because es de alguna forma, y even though we lack, es fácil ayudar a alguien cuando tú estás más o menos bien.
Claro.
Es fácil.
But what I would say is that the benefit at times that I saw in both of us having those moments where we had to set aside what we were going through, I do think we had more compassion this time. Because when you are good, the sympathy is different,
Right.
And I do think that in those times it is easier to be like, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be fine, and there is an assurance that comes with that of like your state of calm is assuring to me. But I think also when you can connect to the person and say, yeah, this is rough, what you're going through, this is hard, this is difficult, that is also a different kind of assurance. And okay, no estoy sola, me entiendes, I feel understood. I think that is also a benefit in what I saw that we went through. Not all the time, you can't always have complete compassion.
Yeah, you can be
But
100.
there were times that I felt like you understood me. I felt like I felt understood by you at the very least, of like I could put myself in your situation, or because of what I'm going through, I can understand a frustration.
Right.
In that sense, I do think that there is that, like in the movie, we are all dealing with the tsunami. We're all, hurting in a sense, and so I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
And yes, I could be selfish, but because I know what you're going through, con más razón, there is a sense of
Doy. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Con más razón
generosity.
doy. And so I think por eso es que I feel, because we've gone through that, like yet another stage in our friendship, I feel like I'm excited for 2024. I'm excited for 2024 Kes, the version
Excited
of
for
her.
your version too.
I feel like I'm probably gonna continue to ask for the same thing.
You might ask for patience for the rest of your life,
Maybe, and
but
that's gonna be
you're
my
going to
thing
be different every year.
every year. Yeah. But I do think that I guess I feel like this year, speaking solely on work, I feel like this year was a lot of like, I'll do what I'm asked. I'll do, and I won't deviate because I'm new to this whole thing. So, and sometimes I get in this mindset of, if it wasn't an instruction, I'm not gonna do it. But I feel like next year, because I've done that, next year I feel like I'm more capable of like, no, I can go out of my way.
You can decide.
I can decide. I can.
This is what's best.
Yes, and this year it was very like, no, 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 they didn't say that, so I'm not gonna, kind of like the list. I'm not gonna do nothing
right.
about it. I'm not gonna do a thoughtful thing. No, in next year I feel excited because not that I'm gonna be taking decisions left and right, but I do feel like I'll be more like, you know what, they didn't ask that, but it'd be nice, so let's do that. Or you know what, it was never said directly, but it was implied, so let's bring that in. I feel like I'll be more confident next year in the work setting.
Yeah.
In my personal life, not so sure. Now, this is an unbelief. It's just I don't know. I don't want to put myself that pressure of like I need to do something, you know, I need to get married, I need to have kids. So next year,
Let the chips fall where they may.
because they've been falling where they may, you know. So it's like no. Lo que sí es que I wanna be more proactive in the sense of like meeting people, going out more with like the girls, or Anna in this case. You know, going to
Services.
services, not to see what's out there and put myself out there, but I do think that I no gano nada con quedarme todo el tiempo en la iglesia y nada más cerrarme a ese grupito. So, you know, who knows? I might end up being friends with puras dorcas
Y con hijos.
y con hijos.
Nietos.
Nietos. It's the grandparents for me. So in that sense, I think I'm excited. I'm actually, you know, there's big changes happening in my life right as we speak. So I'm excited for that too. And yeah.
I think in what I'm looking forward to this year is because last year I ended the year negative and I'm ending this year positive.
And starting positive.
And starting positive, I want to know what that is going to have an effect on
Your whole year.
my whole year, my perspective in general, and my commitment. I think another area that I want to see grow is the way that I serve at church. I still haven't seen it completely happen for me, of that clear direction of God. Where do you want to put me? I've been off of ministry for a while, even though I consider this ministry, but indirectly. I do want to see what God has for me in that sense, because I do think that I have a very different perspective now.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking forward to a different, season in my marriage. I'm looking forward to, we've been married for 3 years, and we don't have kids, and right now I receive it, Jesus. I receive it.
We
receive that season, but in general, I love my husband, and I'm thankful that, we've been together this long, and despite of the just as much as there's highs and lows in my personal life, there's highs and lows in a marriage, always. I'm thankful that we've both become stronger. We've both become more faith-filled, more faithful to our responsibilities as Christians. I feel like this year, it's gonna sound bad because it's like, okay, wasn't he your best friend at the beginning? I don't know. I don't know if it's not that he wasn't my best friend at the beginning, but this year I feel like our friendship is so much deeper than it ever was. And that is something that makes me excited for next year, because I feel like these 3 years we really got to know each other, good and bad, and I feel confident in who he is. And I think he feels confident in, like, you know what? I have 3 years of history for you. I can kind of expect how you're going to react, and vice versa. So I feel more secure in who he is and our marriage. But I'm excited for that. And I don't know. Funny enough, I'm excited for my career. I'm excited for my job.
Definitely.
I'm excited for what God has for me there. What he's going to do with me and the people that I'm working with. But this year for the podcast, for me, some of the highlights were just the fact that we hit a year doing a podcast, and we had our highlights y todo. I can't believe we have been doing this for more now than a year, and we're going for 2, and there's going to be big things coming up. But I am proud of the consistency. I know we've had some holidays where we're off, some weeks when we're off, but even with our 80 subscribers, y'all, I am proud that
85 or 86?
we're at more than 80?
I think so.
Oh, dude, when we hit 100,
Maybe
we're
I'm
gonna
being
throw
delusional.
a party.
Maybe I'm being delusional, but I feel like we're at 80 something.
Oh, I thought we were still at 80. I gotta check. I think that for me,
We
it
should be
just
75.
I think I'm just proud that, the podcast is something that I think at the end of the day brings more good to us.
Yes.
I think what it is for me, it's a time capsule.
Hmm.
When I look back at sometimes our videos when I talk about grief, I'm like, wow,
I felt that.
I'm not there.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, or I'm not there anymore,
Mhm.
not to that degree. Um, I cried a lot the first year that we did the podcast, and this year I didn't as much,
Mm.
despite of everything that was happening behind the scenes. Um, I'm just proud. I'm proud of what
You
we
saw your
built.
growth.
I've literally seen the growth
Yeah.
from the look of
Yeah,
it,
same.
to physically, seeing spiritually where I was
Hmm.
to now. Um, I know I've changed, and it's there.
Yeah, it's tangible in a way.
It's tangible.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also something I'm proud of,
Mhm.
that, the day that I do have kids, I don't ever plan to close this channel. But I feel like that's where I was at.
Yeah.
If you ever want to watch me talk about grief, who knows, maybe we'd go through a situation that my kid
Mm.
needs to have that kind of relation, or
Mhm.
Tia Lula was going through this, and I mom,
There's
I'm I'm
proof
I'm,
here.
I'm going through this, and how does she get through it, like there's that. And so I think I enjoy the fact that our friendship is locked in time
Mhm.
there, and our experiences are locked there. Those are things that I found rewarding for the podcast.
Oh yeah, no. When we talk about the podcast, is uh, and you can judge and be like, oh, how conceited, but there are times where I just go back to old videos and I go back to hear me out videos, and it's like, wow, I really said that, or or the look, the sound. How the other day I saw our very very first
I
episode,
haven't rewatched that
and
one.
I was like, wow, we were so nervous. I feel like you could feel it whenever I would swallow.
You
Like you
kept
could
looking at the
hear
camera.
it. Like you could hear and see whenever I would swallow saliva. I couldn't even look at the camera. So and even in person, I feel like when people tell me, oh, I heard the podcast, oh my god, you did you like it, how do you think about it, and I'm promoting the podcast.
You do. I get so shy with that.
I
I'm just
promote
like,
it.
oh, you
I
watched
tell
it?
I'm so cringe. I tell people subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. And but I think that what's happening is that I'm so proud of what we do. Sure, have we said something that not all of you might agree with? 100%. Have we said something that we haven't agreed on, and you probably watched us be like, oh, they disagree? Of course. But even in that, I feel like I'm proud of it because our intention has always been one, and that's always to relate, to have balance in that relationship that we have with each other, that we have with you guys as our audience. And so for me, it's like we've never done this to tell people how to live their lives.
No.
We've done this to say this is how we think things could go, because this is opinion based. But do you, and I feel like this year, not so much last year, but I feel like this year our podcast really took a nice turn of let's do more center and more Christ center.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give more room to our faith, because in reality we are our faith.
Yeah.
It makes a huge part of who we are. And I don't know if you noticed the change, but you hear me out, and it's fun and all and everything, and occasionally we did have, our faith in it, but it was more laid back, like a lot.
But that also had a lot to do with where we were at. There was a
True.
shift in our spiritual lives.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the second time we did this, and I think this when we started relate to you in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we elevated ourselves and we challenged ourselves to like, no,
We need to do
hay que
better.
también hacer más.
And I feel like that's when, I don't know if you guys have picked it up, guys, but we're trying to convert some of you. Not convert, but we're trying to share the
Preach
gospel.
the gospel, yeah.
And I think that's why I'm proud of what we do, because yes, we might not say the right things. We might make mistakes. I feel like probably a couple episodes ago, I might have had a strong opinion about something, but it's always been out of we need to spread the gospel. we're gonna make mistakes, but we need to spread the gospel, and we are a reflection of our relationship with God.
Right.
And it's gonna come out whether we want it or not, because He's at the center of it. You were just speaking about how God this year really showed you in big ways He's there for you. How can you not come sit here and talk about it? It wouldn't make no sense, And same thing for me. How could I sit here and be like, well, you know what? I did this on my own. No, God has been at the center of it the
Right.
whole time. And so for us to not talk about such a huge part of our lives,
Our identity.
who we are, yeah, we wouldn't be doing justice to our program. We wouldn't be doing justice to God, who's really the one that takes all the credit. And we wouldn't be doing justice to what we're about, which is be authentic and you know, being who we are in front of the camera and in front of people. So with that mindset, I think I'm excited of how are we going to elevate ourselves next year? What else can we do that's going to bring life into people?
Right.
Because that's what we want to do in this small way. And so I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the topics we're gonna have. Maybe we're gonna get more intensive. um and any other stages in our lives that will maybe um will allow us to take a break, will allow us to step back and be like, okay, we need to reformat everything. We need to think about it twice, or because there's also room for stepping back and saying, okay, we need to take a break, and then retake it once we've discovered what we're
Exactly.
about. So there's room for growth in any way. So I'm excited for that in this sense.
This season, again, to start to kind of wrap it up, we're excited for 2024. We're excited not just for our personal lives and what God's gonna do with us, but also what He has planned for this podcast and where it's gonna go. I think that God is coming soon, and because He is, I think it's only natural that next year we're probably going to be more. I don't want to say we're not going to be lighthearted anymore, that we're not going to still be Lula and Kez.
Yeah.
But I do think that every year there is a sense of urgency that
Amen.
we end with, and we start to contemplate on, am I really ready? Am I really showing that I am la iglesia pura, preparada, lista para que regrese su Dios, su Salvador, and I think that it's just a part of the Christian walk. Every year you start to be a little bit more, I gotta try harder, I gotta read more, I gotta get more deep in my convictions, I have to be more faith-filled, because I want to be reunited with my Lord and Savior. We make plans, and we have all our personal desires and aspirations, but at the end of the day, God's will is going to be done in our lives, and His greater plan for this world is going to come to pass. And so I know that I want to be stronger and more faith-filled next year than I am today. And so with that, I do think our podcast is going to grow in itself, and I'm excited to see that, and I hope that you guys stick around with that. And as like Lula was mentioning, we are always trying to preach the gospel, we're always trying to share Jesus with you. And if there's something that you can take away from this, is I think it's a testimony that the fact that despite of everything Lula and I go through, we still preach Jesus. We're still sharing, seek God, find God, you need Jesus. Like, to me, it's like, if there was something wrong with that equation, we would have stopped a long time ago. We would have said, you know what, that's not the solution to your problem. Why don't you try self-love and self-care? Why don't you try crystals? Why don't you try, I don't know, like a lot of other things, there's just a lot of things we could have been preaching. But if there's one thing that's been consistent, every single time we've gone on this show, is that Jesus is the answer. And even when life gets hard. He is the central force that is going to get you through everything that you need to go through. And when you have a band of brothers that is like, I'm with you there, I will pray with you, I will fast with you, I'm going through my own thing. There's a sense of like, we're all in this
Yeah.
together. And I encourage you, you know, we've our church, we always promote our church, Revive Community Church. We're there if you are ever looking for a church, but it doesn't need to be Revive. You know, you can always look up, you know, a Bible, you know, the Bible app,
Up.
start with the verse of the day. You know, there's so many avenues of what you can find, but that is the main thing that we've always
Yeah.
tried to convey.
Yes. So, guys, like Kes said, to start wrapping it up, um, again, thank you for being with us. Look forward um, to 2024. You yourself, you know, do you have plans and goals for 2024? What kind of person are you trying to be for 2024?
How have
And
you grown?
yes, how have you grown? If you want to share it in the comments, please share it. Give us a testimony. Um, I feel like it's always uplifting to share testimonies. It's always uplifting to hear people say, I struggle with this and I'm still perhaps going to continue to have my battle, but my perspective is different. My God has showed me a different, you know, way of looking at it. So allow us to be a part of that and allow yourself to share your testimony that can potentially help others. So thank you guys for everything. See you 2024.
Bye.
Bye.